give a round of applause. So, Irene, could you tell us then, the role of education in developing change-making skills and, a culture of social entrepreneurship at an early age? And, when you're talking about change-maker skills, we're talking about empathy, we're talking about teamwork, leadership, and change-making by itself.
Thank you very much. As you all know, in every country, education as a sector of the community, has the mandate to enroll every school-going child. And that's the first opportunity. Because in most countries now, I think, most young people are supposed to be in school. Some countries like Uganda, we have free primary education, the secondary education as well. So that is the greatest opportunity. And here, in terms of my organization, we have a slogan that says, start early and succeed young. But after listening to many discussions this morning, I'm thinking maybe should we start early, grow, and succeed young, because I think there is a process there in between starting and growing and then succeeding. So one of the things, I could give an example in terms of my organization. What we did is to make sure that through the reform, we have specific components of social and economic empowerment. I could just give a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "Education is the greatest engine of personal development." And I think you know the other one, which says, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Those two are from Nelson Mandela. So what we have been doing at the base of the pyramid is to make sure that when we go out in schools, we start off by, sensitizing, orienting teachers, because we are saying that, yes, you can still be a good teacher, but also a great facilitator. Because what the world needs today is not for you to be on the blackboard, pumping out information, but we also need to listen to the learners. So that's a very difficult thing for us as teachers, because our pride is to stand there and give all the knowledge that we know. So that is one of the things. So training teachers in terms of methodology, but also bringing in aspects like, for example, in personal development, how do you start off with an individual, understanding themselves, self-discovery. And through that, we have many activities like, when we start off in a classroom, also to promote this whole aspect of empathy. Who are you? What is the river of your life? So somebody should go up and tell the whole class about, what has happened in their life, what happened and what they did. And through that, you can actually, enforce or bring out issues of empathy, of the values of a young person. So storytelling, practical-oriented activities, through the leadership. When you have a club, you set up a club and make sure that it's the young people who are in control of their, own learning. So they are the executive, and the teachers now, we kind of step back a bit and observe, but also support. So I think that in terms of starting at that level, at all levels from primary, because everyone has a story, even if it's as short as so integrating and promoting some of those skills that have not been there before. I think through education, we can have more, we can achieve more through the education system. I think I can stop there for now.
Thank you so much, Irene, for those insightful, very, very good insights. And I just want to tie it to what Mary does with education for all children. And, Irene has talked about the role of teachers in developing children as change makers, better pedagogical methods, and all those classroom culture. Then how do you, you as Education for All, help teachers to develop change-making skills within their classrooms?
Maybe I'll respond both as what we do with education for all children, because with Education for All Children, I had an opportunity to learn not just design for, but design with the beneficiaries of our program. And one of the things we have learned is that we want students to, I say, education provides, opens the doors, but sometimes it's not sufficient. You need coaches along the way to help you really use that education to change your own life and to change the community you are in. So we have taken, so we are, so what the approach we have taken is that we are training them on the building their emotional intelligence bit, like they get to know themselves so that they're able to empathize with others. And until they do that, then they're not able to do much for others. So for the youth, we help them define the future they want. And then with the coaches and the mentors, they get strategies to get to that particular future. But we are also working with the universities, basically, and some of the high schools that we are in, which are the pedagogies we implement so that learning is student-led rather than teacher-led. How can we create a space where the students are actually driving their own learning, and they're able to measure their own learning? So you are, like what Irene is saying, you are a facilitator of the learning process rather than teaching them, because we're saying today knowledge is available. But how to use that knowledge is what is really bad, and I think that's what they are doing. They are trying to make sure that everybody can read and write so they can get to the knowledge. But now the role of the teacher has to change, is to create the learning environment that nurtures the competencies that we want. Are these students being able to empathize with others so that they can create solutions? Are they critical thinkers? Are they problem solvers? So within EFAC, we are guiding them through that particular process so that they are doing things right from high school. They engage through community service. What is it that you do for others when you're still learning? Can you give someone something for them to go on? We take them from underprivileged backgrounds, which means they are feeling we are needy. But when they come to the program, they realize, actually, I'm reaching something and I have something to offer, and this is opportunity for me to grow. And the journey has to be intentional, be able to measure the change in me and the change I'm impacting. So we have also developed tools where you are actually collecting evidence of the things you do and then deciding, what have I become today? So I did ABCD yesterday, so what have I become today? So that I know, am I getting closer to the person I want to see happen? One of the things we start with is the second habit, starting with the end in mind. So if I wrote my eulogy today, what do I want people to say when I casket about me? So I have to write that story. I'm not going to wait for people to write that story for me, and I have to be measuring it every day. So, I even have one of my youth here that by the time they were graduating from university, they had started an initiative to show that I have learned something, I have become somebody, I have something to contribute. So I'm not a needy person. I may have come from financially disadvantaged background, but I excelled in my primary. I was able to get into this leadership program. I have something to offer. What is this? And what can I do with it? Yeah? So for us, we are working with both the youth to help them define their, and they can be able to decide who is going to be my mentor, who is my role model, from whom can I be able to learn to become the person I want to be. Yeah.
I love the fact that you mentioned, starting with an end in mind, and the end goal of this session, if you're just joining right now, is for us to be sure that we've explored innovative ways to support change making from an early age. And when we talk about innovation, we basically cannot leave out technology. So Peter, to you, how can we leverage technology to support change making from a very early stage?
Thank you once again, Meshach. How do we get information currently? Information is out there. Actually, there is information fatigue to everybody. And so how do we get that information? Most of the times, currently, we get information through the ears and the eyes, right? We watch, we hear. But do we engage the mind? So, as a world reader, our focus right from the beginning, when we talked about a culture of reading having gone down, I used to hear that in Kenya people used to read so much. I don't see that anymore because we've been conducting research a lot to find that. We've conducted the same research even in Uganda, even in Tanzania, and lately in Rwanda. And we found reading culture is gone. But then we moved beyond East Africa and went to the West Africa. We found the same thing. South Africa, the same thing. And we went to US, the same thing. So the information reception has gotten to only 2 senses. And so the mind is not engaged. So what the philosophy that informed us to come up with this culture of reading is what we are calling currently, and it is commonly said, social emotional learning. And so the social emotional learning comes right from the onset. We have been in classrooms, and we've been in classrooms where a teacher asks John a question, and John is shivering. Let the teacher not point at me. A teacher asks a question, and nobody is willing. The eyes, everybody takes the bird's eye view. And I think that happens even with us currently. If I decide to shoot a question right now, I'm not sure I will see all the faces looking at me currently. So we decided now, let's get and take this culture to where people are currently, where people engage with content currently, and that is in the digital platform. And that digital platform, we didn't want to say, okay, let it reside within the computer. So we diversified. So you will find that content in the phone, in the tablet, in the web. You can find it in the computer, and the desktop, and everywhere. And the good bit of it is because we are promoting a culture, we are not really selling the content. But where do we get the content? We are getting the content from the local publishers, international publishers, and we use them. Now, what we did want to do is to, first of all, before someone becomes even a leader, before someone becomes a youth, we want this, even a child in the classroom, we want this person to become confident. And that is where the social emotional is coming in. You want this child, and good thing is the CBC curriculum captures that very well. So we wanted that confidence to be there first of all, so that even if a teacher asks a question in a class, then the child is at a position to raise the hand even without an answer, but then cannot say the answer and say, oh, I'm still thinking, and then the child sits back. That confidence alone is the first step of reading. But where is the first class? Where is the first school? The first school is at home. And so we, as an organization, target the digital aspect from the home to what we are calling reimagining education. So we have reimagined this education from the way education has always been imparted to us. I can see a whiteboard behind there. But beyond the whiteboard, what happens? The notes that I took are in the bag. And while they're in the bag, I have my phone in my hand. So, and there is, like I said, information fatigue. Even the content that we received from the whiteboard is still within the phone. I can access them. And how do we use that? And now back to us as the youth. Is there something within that particular platform we call the technology that we can use, or we can improvise, or we can modify to ensure that the majority out there benefit from filtered information that benefit them as they continue to grow, and that includes the children. Now, in the aspect of empathy, we really focus on the left behind communities. And left behind communities here I'm talking about the informal settlements if we are in the urban areas. We are talking about the hinterlands. And so in those areas, what is the common way in which we access information? We realized it is the phone. Not even the school, not even the books, but it is in the phone. And that is how we came up with the digital aspect. But that, so we are talking about mobile technology that actually drives digital inclusion across. But COVID-19 reminded us of something. And we saw, everybody saw that. What was happening? Those who had computers, phones, tablets, and everything in their homes continued learning. And of course, the parents could afford, the caregivers could afford. And how about this forgotten group, so to speak? They couldn't. Yet, in those very, very households, there were phones. So our approach builds on that so that we really try to bridge that equity gap so that everybody can access this. Some of us, majority of us are parents here, and you may even wonder, I have always wondered, how my child, who is a 4-year-old boy, gets to access my password. And so the fact that my boy got my password to my phone itself tells me that that boy is a change maker in his own without my input. He can take his own initiative. Was it Brother Jonas said that? He takes that. He looks at an opportunity and takes the initiative out of himself and then gets the password. What does he do with the password? He wants to get to what excites him rather than what benefits him, right? We all have children, those of us who have children. And so as World Reader, we use a platform called Booksmart. And that Booksmart app provides content that can be accessible right now and here. If you have your phone, you can download it and there you are. And then once the child gets access to the phone, the first thing that appears on that phone is not even the phone book, not calls, but that Booksmart. And then once they get to the Booksmart, they get content. They get to read, and that is how they get to help themselves to grow. But we have adopted an approach where the digital aspect based on the parent phones is now being done by the children and the parents, because we are targeting even a 3-year-old child as we move forward. On top of that, there are edtechs organizations, quite a number of them. And we have seen quite a lot. But as the youth, what do we do? How are we using the digital platform currently? We create content, right? And we post them in TikTok, right? And as we post them, what is the intention? What is the goal? Why we post the TikTok? You get several likes, right? And you make people smile and laugh. By the end of it all, how has that built us as the creator? So I would like to challenge all of us that as we create that content, let's create content that could also translate to something that is going to be beneficial, not only to us monetarily, but even in the long term, and also to anybody that is going to interact with our content.
Thank you so much, Peter, for those insights. And just to bring you in, Meshach, because you are in the STEM space. So for institutions that are in that space, how can they leverage on the tools that they have to make sure that they continue to foster change-making skills at a very early age for children?
Thank you, Meshach. So let me first of all start by clarifying. Young Scientists Kenya, we inspire and empower high school students to make change in communities through STEM. And within that, you understand one of the challenges that schools are facing and institutions is so many challenges that limit students from taking up STEM. And one of the things that we do and which schools can leverage is to be able to openly talk about STEM, to demystify myths that students have had from when they're growing up that science is difficult, which kind of job will you do with this? So just to take advantage of that and to demystify. So we try to do that through outreaches, where we work with STEM champions who are basically university students who are doing STEM in the universities, and also industry leaders or experts, people who are in the STEM field, who volunteer to accompany us as we go to provide mentorship, and also just to give the students experiences about STEM and improve their perspective and attitude in terms of ensuring that more students can take up STEM. We also provide STEM education to teachers, because it is the teachers who are doing the hand-holding of the students who are interested in learning and becoming change makers. It is the teachers who are with them throughout, and for us, we provide the teachers with the knowledge around STEM so that they can be able to guide the students in a better way. One of the other things that we are also doing, which I believe the institutions can take advantage of, is to encourage the students to take up STEM and engage in STEM-related competitions and exhibitions, and develop research and innovation from an early age. And all over the world, there are so many innovations that have been generated by young people who are basically age 13 and probably up to 20. And that is the target group that we are working with. And I believe that the institutions are able to take advantage and encourage students to develop skills around not only STEM but other skills that can enable them to become change makers in an effective manner. And finally, we usually organize a boot camp for students who have participated in the science exhibition and competition. So we organize a boot camp where we provide them with mentorship and patenting of innovation that is quite promising, and we work with partners in government so that those students are able to patent their research early enough, and also to register things like trademark. And I feel that these are some of the opportunities that we can partner with institutions so that we work together in terms of building change makers. If you're working on a program that is about leadership, how can we be able to work together to build leaders who are curious, who are critical, who are thinking critically, and who are empathetic of the situation, the community where they come from. So I think for me, it's the opportunity also to collaborate with the different stakeholders who are doing different types of work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meshach, for those insights. Really to collaborate with key actors who make the change-making ecosystem. So if you're joining us right now, we are just exploring innovative ways to support change-making from an early age. And before I engage the audience, Susanna, welcome, and maybe tell us what you do.
Thank you so much. I lead Gold Youth Development Agency, Gold Youth for short. We are currently operating in 6 African countries: Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Rwanda, South Africa, with a few communities also in Uganda. And what we do is we really see the power of community leaders, grassroots youth leaders, to lead organizations that bring about powerful change through youth-led change, ground up. And so simply that model has what we call sites coordinators or leaders. These are community leaders that are really like social entrepreneurs. And they have a team of 18 to 26-year-old young people that are employed to be full-time role models, mentors, and education support agents, working with adolescents that are influential. And what we have seen is that often the leaders or the change makers are having negative change. But how does one get those change making and that influence to have the character and the empathy to then actually have the change be a positive change, not just on yourself but for others? And so we harness that influence that young people have on their peers to bring about changes. And we are bringing these grassroots organizations together to share lessons learned with each other. When the teenagers or the facilitators complete the first few years of the program, they then become grads, and we connect them to post-school opportunities in entry-level jobs, learnerships, internships, and if they're enterprising a micro business, that's what we do.
Could you tell us the role of character and integrity in developing young change makers?
Wow, that's a big one. The role of character and integrity. I think there's a lot of alignment. I think it's everything. I think what we are speaking about in change making is if we don't have character, and character is really your mental and your moral qualities as a person. It's the standard bearer in you. It's how you see right or wrong. It's how you decide, I'm not going to go out with that guy because it's not going to lead me to my goal one day. It's the way you decide to stay afterwards and clean the dishes when no one's looking. It's the way you walk to school for 10 kilometers, even though you're hungry, but you feel like I have value, and if I finish school, it's worth it. It's the small decisions we make that turn us into who we become. And so character, if we all here really valued ourselves, if we all realized that you have agency, I think the Ashoka message of change making or the change maker movement is not saying we're turning you into a change maker. You are a change maker. You are created with value. No one's going to put it in you, but when you see it, it changes everything. When you realize who you are. And so character is the way we choose every day to become the person that we call to be. And sometimes it's not what we do, it's what we don't do, because the good can rob us of the best. So it's all our choices. And integrity, the same, is being consistent. Your word is the truth. When someone in government is leading and they say one thing and they do another thing, we don't just think, oh, that person is like dodgy. They let us down. The consequences are high. So the more influence we have as change makers, the greater the cost when we don't have integrity. When we aren't consistent, when who we say we are is what you see day in, day out. Whether I speak it out, when you understand me, who I am at home, who I'm in the workplace. So character and integrity are critical for us to even be open to empathy, for us to serve in a team where it's about the greater good. Those components, I think, are key, especially in Africa. We've got leaders, but we're not seeing the change that we want to see because they're not always leaders with character and integrity.
Thank you so much. Very great insights. I also hear integrity tying to, character and integrity as being a component for developing change makers. I want to open it up now to the audiences. If you have any questions or insights, this is now the time to engage with our panelists. And I'll just take one or two hands. There is a hand at the back. Can I get somebody to help me in giving out the mics? Thank you so much, Radhika. Good. So there are 3 hands at the back. Thank you, Brian, as well, for helping out with that. Kindly introduce yourself and your question, please. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Elijah, an IFAC fellow. Yeah, so I confirm to you that Mary made me write my urology 11 years ago. Yeah, but I'm here to represent WIPO CBO, an organization we formed back in 2018 when we were in campus to cater for the streets and the needy around Juja and Ruiru. Yeah, and it has worked. But I have a question to Peter. Yeah, Peter, you talked about, I heard you talking about the family and community. So my question is, do you think the community we are in and the families are fully supportive to our change-making programs and projects? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Could we get one more question so that our panelists can react to the questions once it's all?
Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Sointa. I work at the Companionship of Works organization under programs. So we basically deal with sharpening youth abilities and values in terms of employability and entrepreneurial skills. So I have a question actually surrounding mindset because it's a challenge that we've really been facing. You find that the way Brother Jonas had said, most youths are, especially in Kenya, when they come in with maybe an idea or you present an opportunity to them, the first question will be, how much am I getting in this? So how can we, what are some of the capacity building strategies that we can use to navigate around this? Another issue is on the parent mentality and mindset. You find that when you want to engage children at a young age, parents will be on the narrative, especially Kenyan parents, I want my kid to be a doctor, I want my kid to be a lawyer. So whenever you want to bring any other narrative that is maybe entrepreneurial, it may not be well received. So how do we navigate through such mindsets?
Thank you so much. That's a very good question. Mary Kiguru, I'll let you take that question because we already have an evidence of you working with young people, and I believe you can have the answers to how much question. So Peter, probably you take on the question. The first question, please.
Yes, I do think. Thank you. Yes, if it is thinking, I do think parents are supportive. But on reality, you have to go and find out. And we did find out as an organization what extent are parents supportive of engagement, that they also see that it supports their children. But we found very varied responses, that quite a good number of parents are quite supportive of any engagement that are going to benefit their children. But let me first of all borrow from Gaski's principle. It states that in 100%, if you have 10 people, you have 100 people, there are those 20 people that will see the sense in what you are saying to tell them, and then they adopt very quickly. And then there are those others, the 20, that I would call them the fence sitters. They let me wait and see what will happen along the way. Actually, the first block is 40, not even 20. That will take and run with it. And that happens even in any setting, including here. And then the second one, the fence sitters are 20%. And then that leaves us with what percentage? 40. So this 40%, there are those who are waiting to be influenced by others, and then there are those who are waiting not to be influenced and never to hear anything and will never change. So these kind of parents, we also found them in that principle of Gaski. So there are parents who pick it and they would accept, however novel, however new the idea is. So long as you package it in a way that they see that this eventually is the benefit of this engagement to my child, to my youthful boy or daughter, they would adopt that pretty quick. But then, there are those, this had frontliners, the final group, will always be very, very much on the lookout to see whom they are going to influence negatively. And that is where the what would I say, community approach and support system comes to work in. And then those who are hard, the fence sitters will always be checked based on the outcome, what you are doing. So whatever it is that you're doing and it is good to benefit everybody, always do it, but ensure that the results are in sight. And that is what will convince the rest who are not yet decided to go.
Thank you so much, Peter.
All right. One of the challenges we have actually faced a lot is that our scholars also come from primary schools. And the primary school wants to say, we have produced so many engineers, we have produced so many doctors, right? So they have this student who has an opportunity to go to a very good school and they get an A at KCSE. And they want this person to apply for medicine. So they're influencing this kid. And this kid wants to be recognized by the society. And so they want to do what the community wants, right? It's not just the parent, it's also the community. So what we normally allow the students to do through high school is really when they enter in Form 1, they have a vision for themselves. And most of the time they'll be saying, I want to be a pilot, I want to be an engineer, because those are the things they know. But after a year in the program, when you're working with the mentors, it's really asking them to identify an issue in your community that you would like addressed. And are you the person who will address that? So when you're going through high school, you're thinking, how do I need to equip myself to bring about the change I want? Will I be a journalist so that I'm an advocate and I'm a good voice for my community? Do I want to be a nurse? Maybe the issues is of health, and being a nurse is what I'm passionate about. So the decision now is on the child. What do I want to become? And most of the time we find, now with WebPro, one of the challenges we saw was that there were so many kids, when you're going away from the university in the evening, it is so unsafe. Why is it so insecure? Because we have so many young people that are not going to school and they are pickpocketing, they are harassing you, so they wanted to address that. First of all, for the sake of the 4 years they're going to be at the university, they want to feel safe. So they started gathering these kids and playing soccer. And by playing soccer, there's a discipline that comes with that. And then they start thinking, so what future do I want? And as students were able to help fundraise and take these kids to school, but then now the parents started getting interested in the lives of their children. So I think now, Elijah, we can say the parents participate, right? They are striving to pay fees. But then the whole process for us is really, we base it on a model we call build. First of all, you believe in yourself, you know yourself. I talked about the emotional intelligence bit. They know themselves, their emotions, and emotions they evoke in others. They're able to manage themselves and how they relate to others. Then they're able to identify with others so that they can be able to provide the solutions they need. And they're socially aware of their communities where they are and the solutions they can bring about that. Then how can they motivate themselves to develop those particular solutions? And this develops an entrepreneurial kind of thinking. We try to encourage them to do this before they graduate because they have the space without thinking, how much money am I making? All they're thinking about is the change. And they'll be thinking about the change. We have taken care of their tuition. They have food, because without food, again, is a big issue. They have shelter. So they have these 8 years to really not think about what is in it for me, but to see how can I create the job for myself. We normally tell them, you have to create the job you want. If you don't start doing that in Form 1, then you'll be struggling after you graduate at the university to get the job. So most of them, of course, they'll be looking for employment. So we are helping them network with organizations through the whole process. Through community service, they're getting themselves known. So they have to do community service right from high school. Most of the time, you'll find they're going back to their primary schools to offer their whatever it is that they can offer in that primary school. They are volunteering in health centers. They are volunteering in the mosque or churches. So they are getting known. Someone sees them there and sees that this has potential. They will be connected. When we talk to most of our alumni, they say, because I volunteered there, someone saw what I can be able to do and were able to recommend me. Or I worked in this organization, maybe like a children's home, and this is the gap I saw, and I thought I can be able to do this, so I proposed this particular solution. So they are developing their own entrepreneurial thinking, and they can be able to say to the community, no, I got an A, but I want to be a teacher.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you,
So,
thank you.
Yeah, that
So-
is the ecosystem we are creating.
I know that we have a few more questions from our guests, but I just want us to be mindful of time. So we'll take 2 more questions, and please direct them to the 2 remaining panelists at the front. And I want to give each of you 1 minute to respond to the questions so that now we get to the next session.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much to the presenters. My name is Dr. Peter Kimuru. I teach for Tangaza. And my question is directed to Irene. I believe whatever you're doing is a calling. I mean, something that you're really intrinsically motivated. But during your journey, there's also that side that comes and says, no, it is not possible. And that is why you find that many of startups, or many young people actually are afraid of really getting out and trying. So how did you overcome that inner voice that perhaps said that, no, it is not possible, but you still went ahead and proceeded to be successful with your engagement or venture?
We can take the second question as well, as Irene prepares for that.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Kenyoa. Recently graduated and moved back home. My expertise in public policy, but I work in the development space. My question is to, I have no idea what his name is, but the STEM-focused organization, but also to you all as panelists. Where does ethics and the history of the spaces we occupy fit into our social enterprises? Because I worry that we enter into spaces with a focus to make change, but we don't think about the ethical implications of the work we do with the people we work with. Thank you.
Oh, wow, really powerful question. So please, my panelists, please remember you have 1 minute to respond to the questions that have been tabled, just to be mindful of time.
So I'll start with Meshach for the STEM question, please.
Thank you for your question. I would respond by saying that as Young Scientists Kenya, we are working very closely with the government, and in fact, Young Scientists Kenya is as a result of an MOU between government and the Embassy of Ireland, and through their respective Embassy of Ireland in Nairobi, as well as Ministry of Education. So a lot of the things that we do, we have to get all the support from the Ministry of Education and the other ministries within the education sector, like there's a department called SEPU. I can't get all the initials, but they're responsible for sort of manufacturing or creating tools that students need to do to use in the lab. And we work with them very closely because during our programs, they are the ones who provide us with those things that we take to the most underserved schools, particularly in the drought-affected counties. So there are so many schools in Kenya that do not have laboratories. I've never, students getting to Form 4 without even seeing a lab equipment and all that. So we work very closely with government, and even in policy spaces, there's a lot of conversations that we are also trying to ensure that issues of young people taking up STEM becomes very critical in government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meshach. Irene.
Hear something about entrepreneurship, saying, Irene, how can you talk about business with our young people? We don't want business that is for failures. So the resistance actually came from home. And at one point, really, because I was spending too much time on this work. But what I did is to make sure that I come up with models of what I could say evidence-based advocacy. When you try out something, it succeeds, and that becomes your flagship. And the other issue for me was, listening. It's good to have an idea, but also give others an opportunity. So there was a lot of input from all my collaborators, from the specialists at national curriculum, from private sector, the banks that I was working in. So listening, and listening. And of course, the entrepreneurial competence of persistence and risk-taking. I used to go out in the newspapers and just say, this is not working. And being bold and coming out and just waiting to see if you are getting any bullet. So also, in terms of doing such work, listen, get evidence, and be bold and resistant, because change is not instant. It takes time.
Thank you so much, Irene, for those good remarks. We are closing the panel now, and thank you so much, my panelists, for all your insights. We can continue with this conversation outside, when we're done with the event. But just in case you missed this session, we have reflection session tomorrow at 2, and you'll get to hear more about what our panelists shared on innovative ways to support change-making from an early age. Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Yes, thank you.
And Brian, Karikasana.
So before your panelists sit down, I want to recall them back on stage, because there was one question I feel that wasn't answered, and it was the question on ethical values.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
And I'll give you that as your parting shot, please. So 1 minute, all the... Do you mind
Susanna
repeating the question? Okay.
Thank you. I guess my question specifically, just to clarify it, is where in the social enterprise space, and especially in tech, is there consideration for the ethical implications for our work? And I heard about the collaborating with government, but government is not always the best marker for what is ethical in our space. So how are you arming the individuals who are going to build technologies to make sure that their technologies are in line with that ethical model, but also not harmful for our communities?
Susanna, anybody on the panel who wants to take on that? Susanna? Yes.
No, I think your question is a big one that I think a lot of people are asking. And I think that's part of the challenge as social entrepreneurs, that we see our role as being in advocacy as well as the doing. And I think we have to shape this. I think we have to start small, think big, and we have to be holding the gatekeepers, holding policymakers, holding government to account, and having the boldness to say that's not okay. And I think opportunities like today, where we can come together as corporate, as social entrepreneurs, as government, as academia, and hear one another, I think is where we also earn the right to have that voice. And I guess it starts with me. I think when we let it slip, it's just so easy to model that to others. And so I think whatever you are pioneering, be the one that, if I can say, be squeaky clean. Don't let yourself slip, because that's how we end up in a system change mess that actually needs to be undone. But it's the elephant in the room, and we need to there's a lot we need to change that's linked to ethics. And some of the big ideas that can have massive positive change get hijacked and actually have a destructive impact, because a few greedy people get a hold on having the greater voice.
Yes, thank you.
I think I just wanted also to pose a challenge even to this particular forum. I think that's a question that's really been posed to us frequently. How are we developing ethical leadership in the youth? And we have a framework to support that, yeah? So I think that's a very big question for us. There's some things the youth may not be knowing when they're starting this, the change-making journey. They need to be educated, but have we created the framework to support this ethical leadership? I think that's a question we need to respond by the end of this conference.
And accountability.
Exactly.
Accountability. When a young person, nothing in life comes easy without fighting for it.
Okay, so I will end the discussion there. Please, a round of applause. I know not all got to speak. Thank you, Meshach. Thank you, Ashoka Fellow Susanna Fra and Ashoka Fellow Irene Mutumba, Peter Cloud for engaging us in this discussion, and Mary Kiguru from Education for All Children. Please, one last round of applause as we transition now to the next session. I know as the discussion continues, one question can come to mind. We're talking about this being a youth track, and we're wondering, where are the young people? Don't you mind? The young people will be here on stage tomorrow. Today is a day for us to try and get a sense of where have we been, what is working, what are the trends that we need to pay attention to, what are the avenues that we can begin to connect along, what are those synergies, where can we meet as stakeholders in this space and begin to move forward together. While the panelists were discussing, I heard Peter Cloud talking about password. And the first thing that came to me is if the child knows the password and is the change maker, then the guy who was asking for password, amukumbuki password, wapi password, maybe he could learn a few key skills of change making. So I don't want to take too much of your time because we're out of time. I want to invite Elijah Cheriot from Riara University. I have two other young change makers from Wantanara Foundation. I will push you to tomorrow. So today we have Riara University represented by Elijah Cheriot, a young change maker who's part of the AACOSE project. AACOSE is a partnership between British Council, Riara University, and Ashoka. It's all about accelerating entrepreneurship in universities. So Elijah will be talking to us and sharing with us his change maker story, touching on empathy and change making. And then after this, we'll transition to our second and last panel for the day. And then tomorrow, we meet here at 2 p.m. to listen to the young people reflect on the discussions that we've had and share their take on everything. Elijah.
Thank you very much. My name is Elijah Cheriot, youth representative for Riara University, an entrepreneur under the cohort 2 for the AACOSE project. AACOSE in full is accelerating entrepreneurship support in universities in Kenya, part of the cohort 2. It is an educational partnership between Open University, Riara University. Open University is in the UK, Riara University Kenya, Ashoka East Africa, and Africa Technology Policies Studies, ATPS, to provide entrepreneurial education within a virtual space and teamwork. So I'm going to introduce myself as a founder and a CEO of EJ Tech Art 254. EJ Tech Art basically is I create art out of tech. So a smart device like this, I disassemble it, and then I mount it into a frame and then sell it. That is a small business that I started. And with the support of AACOSE, and Riara University, I want to make this business a very big business and go out there. As a youth, tufika kwa watu wengine wote, we grow this business. And so the empathy part now, the environment, when this phone dies, we just dispose it. Most of the people dispose the phone and get a new one, not thinking about the lithium-ion batteries that are inside here, the motherboard which is inside here also. They damage the environment. So as part of an environmental sustainability and environmental change, and to reduce pollution, when I get an old device, let's say your phone is not working, is already dead, you want to get a new phone for yourself. I can have your phone. You had a sentimental attachment to your phone. For example, what made me think of this business idea? Back when I finished high school, my dad bought me a Nokia Lumia 520. I really liked that phone so much. I used it, nilitumia hadi kaisha kabisa. Kabisa, ile unaona imefika, it was ilikuwa imekufa kabisa. So instead of throwing it away, and I had a sentimental attachment to it, I disassembled every part of it, printed a paper, named this is the screen, this is the back cover, this is a SIM tray. I wish I had a photo, I would have uploaded it to you so that you guys could have seen. It would have been much better. Yeah, so to reduce pollution, the device like this can be mounted, and then it's a small business, as I said. You can get something small out of it when I sell it to someone. So you can like the idea. You can end up liking the idea. You have your old phone. Reach out to me. I can mount it to you, create a frame, create it to you. As a young person, I have made something small. Maisha inaendelea. Yes. So, to change making. So I began my change making journey by researching and learning about the most effective way to break down now. It was a sort of it's a financial barrier, and then the environmental, there's a sort of barrier whereby people just throw their phones. So so that for the environment now, Kiingereza imepotea hapo kidogo, but let me continue. So I then actualized my dream by creating a product now, the Tech Art, that utilizes the latest advancement in net zero campaigns. So this product has helped me curb the financial barrier that I had, and also reduce pollution in the environment, and I aim to go further. So partnership. Partnership has played a crucial role in the success of my project. My university, my dean is over there, the Riara University, and also my lecturer is also over there. They have really helped me a lot. They provided the resources and guidance that I needed to develop my product. I'm part of the AACOSE, as I said, of the cohort 2. If you want to know more about AACOSE, you can check our website at riarauniversity.ac.ke/AACOSE. Also, you can check out me, you can check out my project at I'm currently really juvijana tuko Instagram. So on Instagram at EJ_TechArt_254. In conclusion, empathy is the driving force behind change making. By identifying problems, feeling a deep sense of empathy for those affected, we can take action to create a positive change. And with the support of partnership, we can turn our dreams into reality and make a real difference to the world. Thank you.
I know that some of us who are young at heart didn't understand what ACA means. ACA, what is it called? Kijazilio? Ama, what is it called? AKA. Also known as. Yeah, I see there are people who are following the story here. But thank you so much, Elijah. So Elijah is part of the AACOSE project. AACOSE, as he's mentioned, again, I want to reiterate, Open University, British Council, and Riara University. You'll be hearing shortly from the Dean of Students, a really amazing person, really young at heart, engaging with young people. That's why Elijah could say, Doyo Dean Apo. He's a really amazing person. So we'll be having that conversation shortly and discussing about this. Remember that today we are engaging partners that we've worked with who are transforming the growing up experiences of young people. Once we've been able to identify what is happening within the space, who are the players, what are the insights that they've learned over the years working with young people and for young people, setting up the right structures so that young people can master empathy and change making. Then tomorrow, we get to listen to young people. What is their take on what we've had today? What do they think? How do they, how can we move forward together as young people and organizations that serve young people? So with that said, I want to welcome on stage Ellie Savatia. Ellie Savatia is another young change maker who was part of one of Ashoka East Africa's campaign called Lead Young. Lead Young sought to shine a light on young people who are leading change. Young people who've been able to master empathy and action it. Young people who've been able to sensitize the community that they're working with about the challenges that are within their environment and to act on those challenges. Ellie had worked with a community of over 4,000 people across Kenya before I met him. And so Ashoka did not tag him a change maker. He was a change maker before that. So could you please put your hands together, and I don't know where Ellie is, to welcome on stage Ellie Savatia. There he is. Hai, makofi ya kilo tafadhali bana.
Thank you so much, Chisoli. Thank you and welcome again to AACOSE at Tangaza University. My name is Eli Savatia and I'm the founder and CEO of Scienverse. I'll just go ahead and introduce the next panel discussion. Please allow me to invite on board the panelists for this session. We're going to be tackling collecting visioning. Yes, Nicholas Maura, the Dean of Students at Riara University. Then we also have Margaret Waithaka, Career Guidance College. Also have Danny Mushiri, the Regional Director at Trace Radio. Teresa Njoroge, the co-founder and CEO of Clean Smart Kenya. And Cloud Kandim, Grants and Partnerships Manager at Dignitas. Welcome. Thank you once again for joining us on stage. Just a brief introduction. Welcome to the panel discussion for collective visioning. So today we have a group of selected panelists who will share their insights and experience on the challenges and the opportunities in transforming growing up, learning, work, and innovation experiences for youth in Africa. Yeah, my name is Eli once again. I'll just proceed to panel introductions, starting from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Njoroge. I have the privilege of leading a social enterprise called Clean Start Solutions, where we empower women, youth, and their children who are impacted by the criminal justice system. So a lot of our work is in prisons, the juvenile centers, the rehabilitation centers, and working with youth who have been left out of the mainstream opportunities. So grateful to be here. Thank you.
My name is Danny Mushira. I'm the Managing Director for Trace in East Africa. Trace is a media entertainment empowerment platform that deals with young people through entertainment with a vision to create empowerment opportunities with a goal to actually move them into mainstream economic activities. So pleased to be here and I look forward to the discussions this evening.
Good afternoon or good evening. Claude Kandem is my name. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, but I work at Dignitas as the Grants and Partnership Manager. At Dignitas, we are an education development nonprofit. We work with schools and learners from urban informal settlements, but also rural areas. And what we ideally do is offer training and coaching solutions aimed at improving learner outcomes, the acquisition of 21st century skills and shifts in teacher practices. I'll be able to bring out that more as I engage in the panel. Thank you very much.
My name is Margaret Waithaka. I offer professional career guidance and development services to young people, where we offer assessments and we do counseling to them because we know the challenges that we have when it comes to professional career guidance in the country. And then over time, we felt that you cannot work alone. We started College of Career Guidance and Development so that we not only offer capacity building, but we offer training and competencies in career guidance to those people who offer the services. So we have a full diploma where we are engaging, where we are training people who offer the services. I'm also the Career Development Association development, that is the association that of Kenya. I am the board chair in CEDA, Career Development Association of Kenya. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas Moura Kinyanjui, the Dean of Students at Riara University. Our business is to offer quality education that is responsive to the needs of the time, to young people, all the way from kindergarten to the university. We belong to the bigger Riara group of schools. We have about 4 campuses, but the university is based in Bagadhiwe. Our institution was founded by 2 educationists, Daniel and Edda Gachukia, the household names in Kenya and East Africa in the education sector. And their main intention is to provide quality education within African region, because the founders were very conscious of many people going to look for quality education abroad, or institutions which are established by foreigners, and they sought to come into that, seal that gap and provide quality education. It's my pleasure to be here to make a contribution along my fellow panelists. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Yes, so to start off this discussion, we're going to have 1.5 minutes each to respond to the questions. Then we'll turn to the audience who will shoot questions to our distinguished panelists. So to start us off in this discussion, I'd like to direct my first question to Margaret Waithaka. Margaret, could you share with us some of the best practices for developing career development to guide young people in their career choices? And how can these practices be scaled to reach more young people in the country?
Okay, thank you. I know I can talk about this for long, but I'll just try to have that 1.5 minutes. Yes, like I said, the best practices is that every person was born unique and is wired differently. And it is upon everybody to understand that they have talents and interests and abilities that they can align with the courses that they are taking and the work that they do, so that they're able to be more productive and motivated and innovative. Science has shown that persons who are aligned to their careers they tend to do very, very well. They are more motivated and they are innovative. So for the best practices would actually be for young people, be able to understand how you're wired. All careers are a calling in the world, and you can, as long as you are rightly wired, you can actually be very productive in your career and you can offer something in this world. The best practices would actually be to ensuring that the persons offering career guidance practices are trained. In Kenya, everybody and everyone has been offering these services, and that is why over 75% of Kenyans are misaligned or doing the wrong careers. So it is important that if you are offering the service, you should be able to get the right competencies so that the science of careers is able to be taken into cognizance, and we are not misdirecting our young people to be taking the only 5 courses that we know, doctor, engineer, and all that, and to know that every career is a calling. Whether you are a DJ, we need music. If you are not, we need to see what is going on. Everyone should be able to be assimilated into the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Indeed, every career is a calling, and we have to find those spaces where we get to actually actualize some of these unique talents into careers. Thank you, Margaret, once again. Claude, I'd like to direct the next question to you. In your experience, what are the current challenges facing young change makers in Africa as they transition from education to work? And what are the best practices for, sorry about that. Yeah, what are the best practices for career guidance and mentorship in that perspective?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your question is unique and is interesting. And one thing is, whereas where I work, I might be doing something slightly different, relevant but slightly different, I am a young person. And potentially, I have just, just transitioned into the workspace. I have the privilege of having started working earlier when I was in school, but if I had followed the normal trend with my peers, I should just be potentially a few months or a few years into the workspace. But I am also lucky to have siblings who are right behind me, and I am well acquainted with the challenges that they're going through. Currently in my household, I have 3 young people who are all very smart, very dedicated, looking for attachment. Not even internship, attachment. And I can tell you for a fact, it is a struggle. It is a huge struggle. Now, one thing I've realized, when they call organizations, some of which I have called on their behalf, organizations are very honest with you. They're like, attachees are a lot of work. They do not bring any value because potentially how the market views attachees is people who just need to sign certain workbooks for them to continue their degree or to finish and graduate. These young people really want to learn. They want to have an opportunity where they get to learn and see what options the market space offers them and what they can do with those options. But then organizations are like, workloads are already so tight. We already so, every staff member is working at their capacity. And so an attachee who is on, you have to teach and teach and teach. And potentially you ask them to do something on their own, which takes 6 hours. You still need to spend another 3 hours, if not 8, reworking what they have worked on. So you find there's that disconnect. A very clear, a very loud, a very gaping disconnect between the expectations of young people leaving school and the market. There's this experience question, and there has been that, I think we are all on social media, and you see those young people wearing the overalls, and they've been given these things that engineers wear. And they're being told, you have to start now because when you're 22, they want 4 years of experience, yet you need to work for you to get the experience. So there's that disconnect. And I think potentially, just bringing all those things together, and in the interest of time, just responding to that question, I think it's a question that is more a question than it is an answer. It's a question that we have to be alive to. And having all these players here, we have academia. My brother is actually in Riara University, taking a diploma in international relations. He's one of the people I'm talking about. But there's academia here, there's industry players here, and it's the industry to come and talk to academia and tell them these are the gaps in your training, and this is how you'd fill those gaps. But also academia, the learning institutions, having candid conversations with the market space, and be it public-private partnerships, as was alluded to, or any other form of partnerships, where it's very clear the chain is continuous. Because we have a continuous chain where, I start from grade 1 all the way until 6 years or 7 years at university. But past there, we have a gap. So there's what the market needs, and there's what the school is not meeting. And so there is where young people are on their own. And that is why we have drugs, that's why we have insecurity, that's why we have suicide, that's why we have other mental health issues, because those issues are not being addressed. So we, as all the players, need to have that conversation and to forge a way forward. That's the best I would propose with the time you've given me, but thank you.
Thank you. Bringing all stakeholders together to have this conversation and find those solutions. Thank you so much once again. Next, I'll move to Nicholas. I'll direct this question to you. You're in academia. And what are some of the challenges and opportunities in transforming the education system in Africa to make it more accessible and inclusive for youth in marginalized communities? And you can respond to that.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very common question. The issue of access, limitation, opportunities. And I would like to tie it very well with the Sustainable Development Goal 4, where we are looking at quality, accessible, inclusive education for all, and also to ensure that there is lifelong learning for whether it's a young person or in age. But looking at the issue of maybe first looking at the limitations, it revolves around the issues of economic ability, whether it is at an individual level. Education, those who did economics of education, you understand, it's also a commodity. Besides being a there is a social goal, there is an economic goal, and so on. It's a commodity. So what is the buying power for the people? So you'll find people without adequate resources may lack access to quality education because of the economic aspect. The government or those who are funding education. If you look at the global divide, countries in the global south, here in Africa, and our partners in the developed world, how much resources are allocated to education. Countries in Africa which are economically well endowed, and interestingly, those who are Kenyans, sometimes you may think you're among the struggling countries. A lot of funding, by the way, is allocated to education in this country, in Ethiopia, in Nigeria, in South Africa, Egypt, and so on. But equally in Africa, there are many other countries with a lot of challenges. And having said that, even countries like Kenya, where you have a lot of resources allocated to education, we still have marginalized communities, both in interior, that could be a geographical limitation, like people in Madeira, arid and semi-arid areas in the country, people in slums within the urban areas. So the problem, the geographical aspect and also environmental factors all limit access to education. However, we should also look at the opportunities that are brought now by digital technologies. But digital technologies are both an advantage and a disadvantage, based again on issues like the gadgets. I don't know who talked about some people were able to go on with education during COVID, and basically COVID transformed the way we learn completely and the way we will ever learn. But there are people who are left behind because they don't have the proper gadgets. Because it's not only having a gadget, but the appropriate gadget. And also other aspects like connectivity and so on. So again, there is an opportunity within the digital technologies, but there must be a deliberate effort to provide resources for the marginalized groups. But I think digital technologies provide a very good opportunity for access to quality education for all. So there are quite a number of limits and a lot of opportunities and advantages. Perhaps also look at the way people learn and the future of jobs. What kind of education are we offering our students today? Because it's unfortunate that most of us involved in education sector, we are still offering outdated content. And I would say that is a terrible crime, because why would you educate someone or provide someone with competencies which they don't require in our world today? Okay, so I would like us, as we have this conversation, look at all the domains of education, whether it's psychomotor, it's affective, cognitive, but working on ensuring we provide the skills of today, like the AI and entrepreneurial. We need also entrepreneurial institutions, yeah? And that's why people like Ashoka And all these partners here, we are together trying to look at how can we work together to provide relevant education to our young people. I hope I am responding to your question.
Yes, and also thank you for also, I mean, there's a second part of the question which I did not talk about, but
Go
thank
ahead.
you for also talking about how we can equip, you know, the students of today with the necessary skills and competencies for the 21st century market. Yeah.
Allow me to respond to that, because that's a very important question and closely tied to what my brother was trying to respond, and my sister here, on the competencies, particularly soft skills, which are very important for an employee. The 21st century skills, where we're looking at skills like digital skills, emotional intelligence, communication, and leadership, critical thinking. So an individual who is going to go to the world of work, and just very closely tied to what he said, you have 3 people in the house, and not only 3 people in the house, so many graduates who cannot even get an attachment. What I tell students is the employer is not looking for the paper. They are looking for what you can do with what you have learned, the skills that you have acquired. And I have seen there, I know some young people have left here, but the educators are here. You'll find an occasion like this, very few young people will come and attend. Like in our university, we are very purposive on having guest lectures, entrepreneurial engagement, innovation, incubation activities, and all that. Why we do that is because we know we must expose the students to an environment, an enabling environment where they are able to acquire the right skills. But again, you know, you'll not be forced to acquire the right skills. If your business, you just want to pass through the institution, get a certificate, and you say, I have a degree or I don't know what, the employer will employ someone with only a certificate that was taken in Google online course. Okay? Pay that person all the money they can pay to deliver what they want to be delivered, as opposed to somebody with a PhD, which is irrelevant. So let's acquire the right skills. As educators and as learners, let's research. Let's engage in conversations which help us to understand where the world is moving, where the learning is taking place, what kind of learnings the world is looking for, and so on and so on. And if you were to have a longer conversation, we can go to specifics, and you understand what I am alluding to. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your insights. Allow me to now turn to Danny. Could you talk about the role of media in shaping the narrative around youth development and entrepreneurship in Africa? And how can we use this media to promote collaboration among stakeholders in the youth development ecosystem? Yeah.
Thank you, Eli. Yeah. So I think, you know, the role of media traditionally is to educate, inform, and amplify various messaging that comes across the platforms. I think increasingly, and just picking up onto the conversation that is happening, and also taking cognizant that the effect the technology has had on media recently, where media is no longer traditional media that you're used to, you know, radio, TV, terrestrial newspapers. Increasingly, I think media is we are all part of the media ecosystem as we sit here, because you know, when I look at the world today, for something to break, increasingly it breaks on social media before it comes to traditional media. I think a lot of us here, I'm the only person who reads a newspaper in my office, so it tells you my age. A a lot of us here don't look at newspapers. Even when I have newspapers in the office, no one really reads them after I've put them out there. And I think increasingly we can't understate the role of social media, digital media, and the role it then plays in the traditional aspects of the role of media, which is amplifying information and just educating. So I think it's upon all of us to share our stories. I think as young people, let's share what it is we are doing. Let's be active around joining the right communities. Let's talk to what our experiences have been. Let's seek to build markets that develop opportunities across Africa. Let's realize that we are no longer a Kenyan ecosystem. I think it's important to realize that, I tweet like, you also the guys who rescued a truck driver that was sinking. I think the truck fell into a river, and the commendations came from a guy in the States, a famous actor called The Rock. So what am I saying? I'm saying that it's no longer a Kenyan ecosystem. I think you need to think that you have impact across continents, across the entire world. I think there's opportunity that then presents itself from that perspective, even as we tell our stories. Let's tell our stories in an African way. I think my frustration a lot of the time is we don't get to tell our African stories. Like when I was walking around, I saw a lot of young people with tents trying to do things. We need to find ways to tell these stories. We need to learn how to tell these stories. And there are places we need to connect to that teach us how to tell these stories, because storytelling is an impactful way, and that way we then attract funding. I'd really want to encourage young people to. The world of work has really changed. I work in an institution where 50% of the people I employ have 3 employers, and it's a gig economy. So our station talent comes on air from 6 to 10, and from 10 they go to somewhere else. And I think from 5 o'clock they're doing a podcast. So the world of work has really changed. It's no longer the same. So I think what I'm trying to say is let's look at how we become employment creators as opposed to looking for jobs. Those days of going to look for jobs have really, they're gone by. So, when I look at, and I'll give you specific examples, Trace, my boss who started it 20 years ago was a DJ. Today, Trace is an international company across, reaching over 280 million people across the entire world, employing accountants, employing lawyers, employing all sorts of people. When I come closer home, Homeboys, Mike Rabah was a DJ. Today, he runs a business that employs a different skill set of people. So I think what I'm trying to say is let's become the originators of roles in the century that we are in, as opposed to looking for these things. And the role of media really is to amplify, create connections, and leverage the relationships from a collaboration point of view that is existent and present within us.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your insights with the media. Finally, I'll turn to Teresa. Could you share with us the challenges and the opportunities in developing innovative solutions to address poverty and unemployment among youth in Africa? And how can we create an enabling environment for these startups and these initiatives to thrive in this time? Yeah.
Thank you. Indeed, this is an impeccable track we're having here. Just knowing and alluding to what has been commented to earlier about youth being the largest population, the largest growing population in Africa. And I love the question you've asked, because if you look at, as Vincent mentioned, we are a population of 419 million in Africa, 60% of them being youth. And this 60%, you're looking at 140 million being between the ages of 15 to 35 years and unemployed. That's a really huge population not to be engaged constructively. And the work that Clean Start does narrows down specifically to that population. And, you know, I remember Brother Jonas, when he was opening this session earlier, he said that there are 3 types of youth. He said there are those who think everything is given to them on a silver platter. There are those who need money, and there's a question our sister asked around, how do we make sure that we're not just asking for money when we think about ideas? And to Danny's point of, we need to look for, you know, not just the conventional ways of getting employment or being resourced, we need to think about unconventional ways. And the 3rd category was the youth who are willing to dare. And I thought about the youth we work with. Youth who have been told from day one, you're not worthy of being in any space whatsoever, whether it's in community, whether it's in families, whether it's in school. You think about any space. From birth, they've been told you're not worthy. This is the population of children who grow up in prisons. Across this country, there are children growing up behind bars. There are children and youth who are in juvenile facilities, youth who are in bostels across this African continent, not because they are criminals, but because they are poor. So what we've done is, because of not being able to engage these 140 million youths constructively, whether it's government, whether it's the corporate sector, whether it's supporting them through mentorship or including them in our various spaces, we say to them, you are a nuisance and we don't want to see you. So we lock them behind bars, and I can tell you, a lot of these youth are behind bars because they were arrested loitering. Colonial laws that you could be loitering if you're caught in Kibera, if you're caught in Mukuru, if you're arrested in certain parts of town. But there are particular parts of town, like where we are, where you could walk, and that will not be counted as loitering. So as you ask around the challenges and how we address poverty around youth, A is decriminalizing poverty. Poverty is not a crime. We need to address within amongst ourselves ways of engaging the youth and addressing poverty in a way that, you know, those who are born in that status are not further stigmatized because of their status. In every challenge, there are many opportunities, most of which have been talked about. Danny has talked about some through media. And I want to encourage you, they read the e-newspaper. They might not read the hard copy one, they're reading the e-newspaper. You know, through media and the unconventional ways. You know, Nicholas has talked about developing our own educational spaces whose quality and supply is equal to what is out there. So we're not sending our children abroad to study, you know, because most of us are thinking, where abroad am I taking my children? You know, we could develop those places here. That's very encouraging. And to what my brother has talked about, Claude, yeah, we truly need to mentor the young people, because if they're not mentored, if they're not given the opportunities, where else are we expecting that they will find these opportunities? Being inclusive, being diverse, you know, they're not a nuisance. The youth is our legacy, and that's why I'm very glad about this track. This is our legacy that we're talking about, so let's include them. Let's have them in all manner of spaces. And I really love the point around skills. Over and beyond that paper, it's the skills. Because if you can't provide the solution, then I don't see any reason why we need you. So critical thinking and helping them come up with their own solutions. There is power in numbers. If the youth are the largest population in Africa, there is strength in numbers. Gather together, join groups and form groups that fight for your rights. Nothing is given easy. Go for it, fight for it, create the platforms, be the change makers, be in the lead. Don't sit and wait for opportunities to come to you. We need to see a lot more aggression from the youth. And of course, different styles of parenting. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, panelists, let's appreciate them. Yeah, thank you so much, panelists, for sharing your insight with us and experiences. We've heard about the importance of career guidance and mentorship, transforming schools into vibrant spaces for learning for young people, and also the role of media in promoting collaboration, creating inclusive education spaces that, to innovations, to solutions that address poverty and unemployment. I hope the audience has found this discussion informative, and it will contribute to current efforts that are being done, and to create that better future for young people in Africa. Yeah, we'll keep having this conversation. We are kind of like running out of time. I'll just pass the mic to Brian. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I hate to do this, but I have to. We are running out of time. We started a bit late. We need to proceed to the main hall for the closing session. Remember that we are meeting here today to continue the discussion. Tomorrow, we won't be having young at heart, people who are young at heart joining me at the front, but young people who will be reflecting on the conversations today. We'll be having roundtable discussions to really unpack strategies, discuss the frameworks that were discussed here, the approaches that the panelists have mentioned today. So remember, tomorrow at 2, we meet at this very place to continue the discussion. So thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Claude. Thank you, Margaret, sorry, and thank you, Nicholas. Please, a last round of applause to the very able panelists. Thank you. So yes, for us, we could also please rise because we'll be heading to the main session. Remember, again, tomorrow, 2 p.m., same place, same time.